What up, my flymates? Today we're going to be talking about the new Mac-reigning Netflix original show, Disenchantment. Now, this is a show that people were looking forward to, I guess, more so than most cartoons, I guess, since Mac-reigning, his shows, at least one of them is a household name, and the other one is a very popular show, which is Simpsons and Futurama. Everyone's heard of them. And this is the third show that he's creating. So there's some high expectations for this one. This has got to, stand up to Simpsons and Futurama. And I guess a little prerequisite for those shows, like my opinions on those shows, is that I'm a big fan of the original Simpsons, or at least from seasons 1 through 9. I feel like after season 9, that's when the show started to kind of lose its touch. Now, the first few seasons after that weren't that bad, but after a couple of seasons, it started to get pretty bad, like most people say. And as for Futurama, I do like the show. I don't think it's as amazing as everyone else says it is, but I still do find it very charming and funny. And when it was brought back to Comedy Central, I didn't think it was as bad as everyone said it was, but it was definitely not as good as the last 4 seasons. But here we have Mac-reigning's new show, Disenchantment. Let's talk about the positives first. First off, the animation is actually pretty good. Besides the character animation, which I'll get to later, I do like the background and the whole medieval part of the show, animation-wise at least. It does look different than Simpsons and Futurama, because the shows looked very similar and didn't have much. It felt very bland as for like the backgrounds and all that stuff. But here, at least it looks good. And then next, and the last positive that we have here is that I do like the little continuity nods. I do like how you'll see a character from one episode, and then it'll be brought back as, there's a character that gets turned into a pig, and then you see him throughout the entire season. At least for the first half, since Netflix only released the first half of season 1. And then there's also episodes that that follow the episode beforehand, so it'll end and then it'll just come back and you'll see like what happened after the end of the last episode. Although it does change the plot and there's a different plot, but I still do like that continuity nods. Although I would have preferred if it felt more story based, something like maybe BoJack Horseman, because this is a Mac-reigning show and all of his shows are very episodic. And although this is like half and half, I guess. It's an episodic show. Each episode has its own plot, except there are some continuity nods. So I guess that's cool. But that is it for the positives. Let's go to the negatives. First off, this show feels just like any other Mac-reigning show. Besides the animation, the characters look the same. Even like the elves and stuff look like they can be from Simpsons or Futurama. And another thing that always bothered me was that they used the same voice actors for like secondary characters. You got Tress MacNeille, you got John DiMaggio, you have Billy West, you have Maurice LaMarche. You got them; they're coming back. They're back as secondary characters, and they're always in a Mac-reigning show. Maybe not Simpsons, but definitely Futurama. When I hear like a voice like Tress MacNeille from other shows, I just feel like I'm watching Simpsons or Futurama. It just feels very Mac-reigning-y, and I don't know. It makes the show feel like a typical Mac-reigning show. And then another thing is that the characters are way too basic. First, you have the main character who is your typical princess who doesn't want responsibilities. And that's pretty much her character. She's mischievous and all that stuff. She's like an older version of Bart, except maybe less mischievous than Bart when he was a kid. And then you got the 2 other characters, which are kind of like her angel and devils. Like you'll see from The Emperor's New Groove, where Kronk has like an angel and devil on both sides of his shoulders. These 2 characters feel like that, and one of them is actually a demon, so that's fitting. But you got one character, Elfo, who's like a positive influence on her, and then you got Lucy, who's a negative influence on her, telling her to do all these bad stuff and stuff. So those characters feel a little, cliched, but then also the fact that none of these characters really have that much personality. I don't really like any of these characters, except for maybe Lucy, because he's voiced by Eric Andre, and he's a cool character overall. But the other two characters I just feel are bland, and I really just don't really care for them. And also the plots are just not that creative. It felt like it could be from Simpsons or Futurama, except they just took that plot and added the middle-aged aspect to the show, which makes it feel, not as special of a show. At least with Futurama, you got episodes that felt very sci-fi, and that since the writers they're fans of like Star Trek and all that stuff, they knew exactly how to write a sci-fi show. So they use that as in their advantage. Here, they didn't really use the genre to their advantage. A lot of the plots felt like, oh, this character got taken away, or this character did this, and we're gonna tie it to medieval ages and all that stuff. And the biggest flaw of this show, and one thing that you really, to make a Matt Groening show, you need this, and you need comedy. If if one of his shows isn't funny, then pretty much the show doesn't work. That's why after season 9, just The Simpsons just wasn't as good, because it wasn't as funny. And there's multiple reasons why the last half of Futurama wasn't good, but one of those major things was the comedy, which just wasn't that funny. But this show is just really unfunny. I might have snickered a few times each episode, but there was a lot of episodes that I just was bored. I just didn't find it funny at all. A lot of the jokes were just annoying, and it really felt like a joke that you'd hear on later Simpsons or the last half of Futurama. I know it's a cliche to say, but this really does feel like a post-Golden Ages of Simpsons and Futurama. And then another thing is that they have villains in the show, except it's just they're not even introduced. We see them in one of the first few episodes, and then they're just kind of there making making commentary on what's happening, and kind of just watching the characters as if they were the audience like us. But they're every time we see them throughout the show, they're always oh, we got a plan, there's something coming. Because we know they're villains, but besides that, we know nothing about them. We don't even know. The first episode, or the first time we see them, they make a comment about Lucy, so we don't know, maybe Lucy's working for them or something. We know nothing. And although it's cool to have foreshadowing throughout the whole season, but besides, the only reason for the scenes is for foreshadowing, and that's it. They could have done something else with those scenes, but we're wasting time just for them to say, hey, there's something going on, and you're gonna see these characters later, and that's it. And that's the whole. Every time there's a scene with those characters, it's pretty much just saying that, and it's very repetitive and just unneeded. And then lastly, a little thing that doesn't really matter is that I've noticed that the main character is an alcoholic, which every Matt Groening show, the main character is an alcoholic, so I guess what does that say about Matt Groening? But yeah, that is Disenchantment. I don't like this show. It does really feel like the Simpsons or the later Simpsons or later Futurama. It feels stale, even though this is the first season and it shouldn't feel stale at this point. But yeah, this is a shame for Matt Groening. As a big fan of the originals, the first few seasons of Simpsons and of Futurama, I am very disappointed. But this is the first half of season 1, so who knows? Maybe the second season will get better. But judging by everything, I highly doubt it. But yeah, I'm giving this show a 4 out of 10. Peace out.